Hello, lovely students, and in this writing investigation, we're going to look at 3 examples of how to bewitch through your writing. You're most welcome to write along with me in some helpful writing practice exercises. And Udemy students, you're most welcome to send your writing over in the course Q&A or discussion board. Here's what's been described as one of the best openings ever from Witch Week, a children's novel by Diana Wynne Jones. Chapter 1. The note said, "Someone in this class is a witch." It was written in capital letters in ordinary blue ballpoint, and it had appeared between 2 of the geography books Mr. Crosley was marking. Anyone could have written it. Mr. Crosley rubbed his ginger moustache unhappily. He looked out over the bowed heads of Class 6B and wondered what to do about it. He decided not to take the note to the headmistress. What makes this great? Well, if we look at the opening sentence, it's something I think all of us can imagine, getting a life-changing in a moment message like this. It's dramatic, it's vivid. There's contrast between the extraordinary message and how it arrives. It's in ordinary ballpoint, and it's appeared in books that are getting marked, a routine, repetitive activity. This is visual writing. We can picture Mr. Crosley rubbing his moustache and looking out over those bowed heads of Class 6B. Mr. Crosley's reactions make the description of scene economic and to move the story along. Then he takes his decision not to take the note to the headmistress, which we sense so early on may be a critical turning point in the story right at the beginning. We are gripped. Let's do the exercise. You may like to write this out now and read it aloud to yourself as you do it. Then I'd like you to picture a character who receives a message which triggers a great story. What is that message and how does it arrive? Then I'd like you to describe your character and their reactions, giving us a bit of detail about the setting. And then, briefly, I'd like you to write a decision the character takes about this message. We're going to take 5 minutes now to do the exercise, but if you want longer, you can, of course, always pause the video. How did that go for you? I hope you came up with some great ideas. What I suggest you do now is leave this exercise for a few hours, maybe overnight, then come back and ask yourself, is this vivid? Is there contrast? Is my writing sensory? Can we see, hear, feel the main character's reactions in the setting? Is the decision clear? If you've answered yes to all these, then you've almost certainly got yourself a bewitching opening to something. A novel may be, a short story, or a screenplay even. Okay, next we're going to look at another opening, but this one's from the non-fiction New York Times bestseller, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. Please copy this down for yourself if you find it helpful, and definitely read it aloud. I can't recommend reading aloud writing you admire and your own writing too much, actually. It's just a really, really helpful thing to do. When you've done this, close your eyes for a few seconds and create the scene in your mind's eye. Now, building on the previous exercise, I'd like you to write a description of yourself having a defining moment in your life, a turning point after which much seemed to have changed. It doesn't matter how recent or how long ago it was, it just needs to be an incident or moment which you feel was deeply defining. In the way that Ibram chooses to focus on his clothes here, I'd like you to pick up on an aspect of your identity to show distinctiveness and again contrast. It could be how you look or how you sound or feel or behave, even how you smell. Before you start to write, Again, close your eyes and picture your defining moment in your mind's eye. How do you want readers to feel at the end of your description? Think about what Ibrahim does in his writing, and applying it to yours, you may find it useful to ask, what does what you choose to describe say about you? Where is our setting, and when does this take place? Who else is there, and how are they reacting? What decisions have you taken in the context of what you describe? Okay, off you go then. What I'd like is a brief description, 3 paragraphs maybe, of a defining moment in your life, describing where you are, what do you bring to the situation, and how do other people behave. Again, I'll give you 5 minutes. Defining moments in our lives can be very useful things to consider as writers. Do patterns show up? Have you always reacted in the same way? What would have happened if your life had taken a different route? Okay, so now we're going to move on to our final exercise. And for this one, I've chosen an example of bewitching writing. That's a poem written by Pulitzer Prize winner Anne Sexton, which we'll hear her speak now. So this was written in 1960 when rhyme was more fashionable, and Anne Sexton liked to start all her readings with this poem as she felt it showed where she was coming from.
I have gone out to possessed witch, haunting the black air, braver at night. Dreaming evil, I have done my hitch over the plain houses, light by light, lonely thing, 12-fingered, out of mind. A woman like that is not a woman, quite. I have been her kind. I have found the warm caves in the woods, filled them with skillets, carvings, shells, closets, silks, innumerable goods. Fixed the suppers for the worms and the elves, whining, rearranging the disalarmed. A woman like that is misunderstood. I have been her kind. I have ridden in your cart, driver, waved my nude arms at villages going by, learning the last bright routes, survivor where your flames still bite my thigh, and my ribs crack where your wheels wind. A woman like that is not ashamed to die. I have been her kind.
This is one of my favourite poems ever for its haunting refrain, a woman like, and I have been her kind. There's an echo of the theme in the previous exercise. Here's an outlier, someone bucking convention as the main character here. I love this poem for its structure, the 3 verses of 7 lines, the 3 different positions it takes up, the traditional witch, the homemaker for the dispossessed, and the passenger, battered but persistent. To my mind, this is a fine example of very specific description of witchy behaviour, generalising out to resonate with lots of people. So for this exercise, I'm not going to invite you to attempt a whole poem, but if you are inspired to write one, please of course do so, but just a first verse. So you're writing about an outlier. What have you done that contradicts conventional expectations and norms? And for now, start your poem with I have, and go on to describe what you've done, just like Anne Sexton does. Again, I'd urge you to write out the poem, or at least the first verse, and to absolutely read it aloud. as this is definitely writing for the ear as much as the eye. So Anne Sexton is writing here as a possessed witch. What will you write as? Like the last exercise, she's writing as an outlier, but in the more condensed and imagistic form of a poem. So you can further explore your theme from that previous exercise if you like. It'll be a grand workout for those writing muscles if you do. Off you go. I hope you found that exercise helpful. So the openings of great books, which we can easily read on Amazon for free, are often a fine source of examples of writing which bewitches readers. So dip in, read it, especially in the sort of books that you'd like to write. I do hope you feel you've created some bewitching writing here, and that you can take these magical spells forward into your writing practice. May your cauldron of ideas bubble furiously, and happy Halloween.